It's another exciting, fun-filled time with the Church Solutions podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
So, Steve, before we get into our guest today, let's waste some more time. How you doing?
I'm as flustered as you, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Okay.
No, I'm not nearly as flustered as you.
We had a busy day today already. We did a webinar with Jason Moore, which we'll have it ready sometime in a few days. So it was a great webinar. We loved it. Jason had some technical issues, and we never have technical issues here, so we could not relate to any of what was happening. So, all right. So I'm being facetious. All right. Our next guest is a good friend of ours. And by the way, this is episode number 476, but who's counting? And we're going to talk a little bit about understanding the ministry leader's reality. What if you're in ministry, if you're a pastor, which most of you are, or at least a volunteer, you understand that there's a lot going on, a lot on your plate, whether you're a volunteer, a senior pastor, executive pastor, there's just a lot going on, even if you're a church of 50 people. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how maybe some of this can be relieved. Some stress can be relieved from you. And we've got just a guy to help us today. He's been a friend of ours for many years. His name is Jahng. Kenny, how are you today?
I'm really happy to be here with you guys. It's
good.
I don't know why you're frustrated. We got to turn that frown upside down, Phil.
All right. I shouldn't be frustrated. I had a good weekend, and I'm happy. And you're here with us most of all.
We always have fun when we're here together, three of us.
We do, and that's a nice background you got. Did AI create that background? Well, that's a screen.
Yes, it is a screen. No, I do have other AI generated images, but this one is not.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Being overwhelmed in ministry is something that's very common. I was in ministry for the better part of 4 decades, and I was always overwhelmed, kind of like this morning. And so, it's tough. It's not easy. It's, the old joke is, you only work 1 day a week if you're a pastor. That's not the case, right? There's lots going on here. So let's talk a little bit about how, dare I say it, AI can help reduce your stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, let's just start with, I think everyone here either themselves feels it or empathetically understands it, that right now, I think 75% of pastors describe themselves, they report themselves that they're either extremely stressed or highly stressed, right? Because of the ministry demands. 90% of pastors today are working anywhere between 55 and 75 hours a week, right? And 90% of people, I think, in ministry are saying they're feeling fatigued or they feel worn out every week, right? That their work-life balance is strained. And so I think this is why you see such a high percentage. I think the stat is rising. It used to be like 30%. Now it's 40% of pastors are at high risk of burnout, Phil. That's nearly a 400% increase since 2015. When back in 2015, only 11% of pastors said that they felt on the verge of burnout. And so you're seeing this massive increase of difference in experience. So I think the reality is real in terms of like what is happening on the ministry front. And I think then one of the questions that all three of us are asking is, how might we apply technology to release some of that burdens, right? I think that's a natural question that you, me, and Steve typically are nerding out on day to day.
So I've got a friend that was actually part of our team at Glue. He was a remote team member, and he works for Walmart. And speaking of nerds, I mean, he's just like me. He's a nerd. He's an engineer. He heads up a big department with Walmart. And I ran into him at church a few weeks ago, and he said, I like to touch base because he's on the bleeding edge. He's got all the greatest stuff. So he said the hot thing right now is that they're working on is agent to agent. And he started to explain what the heck is agent to agent. So, and you have a little bit of background here. What is agentic AI, and how's that differ from AI?
Yeah, so we had this curious thing that popped up in 2022 with ChatGPT that's called generative AI, and that's been the media darling, and I think everyone has started to use AI chatbots, right? Agentic AI is the new buzzword. You're going to, over the next 12 months, I think you're going to hear it more and more in the mass media and even in ministry circles, et cetera. We have conferences now that we're going to that we are talking about it. Agentic AI simply means it's AI systems that can act autonomously. It's kind of like they can actually start to make decisions and do things on its own with minimal or often no human supervision at all. And so it could, in traditional terms, we think of these tools and technologies of things that we send on and do a task, right? So go analyze data, analyze this and predict the outcomes, or I'm going to type in some commands and it generates some content for me. And this new phase of AI called agentic AI agents, is one where AI can now reason, it can plan, it can make decisions, and then it can execute multiple steps in a row without having to come back to you every single step of the way. And so this is the future. And I personally think for pastors, for church leaders, for church staff, it's going to open the doors for a lot of options that is going to help combat the overwhelm and the stress and all the tasks that's just on your plate today.
He gave me an example of something he's doing. I'm not sure would be classified as agentic, but like I said, he's the guy that's supposed to be looking out over the horizon and kind of know what's coming. And so he's got to keep his feelers out for a bunch of different stuff. And he said what he's done recently is he's taken like books or papers that he doesn't have time to read, but he really probably should be aware and read. And he turns them into like 30-minute podcasts.
Yeah.
And so he'll load and he'll, like he's driving to work, he's working out, he's doing whatever. And he's got, it's kind of like what we did. You're probably too young, but back in the day, there was Cliff Notes, right? Where someone did the work of reading the book for you. And then they would go put out the short version that you could, cram before the test and know something about the books. This is I kind of see that as that. Is this an example, or is this something that other people, a pastor, could use to help them during the week?
So there's very simple ways to think about it, right? So for example, and it's just basically automation, right? That's the really, really baseline baby steps that we're talking about. And usually we'll do a couple of small things with pastors and church leaders to show them what the power is. So one of them might be where it looks at your calendar. We just set this up for a team. It looks at your calendar, and then it looks like at anybody else who's invited on that calendar invite. And if that person's email is different domain name than yours, right? So if yours is gracechurch.com and then someone's invited, it's phil@someotherthing.com. Well, you can assume that it's not someone on your staff or it's not an internal meeting. It's someone with an external meeting. Well, then you can have the actual AI go out and then look up its website and summarize what the website does. It can go to the LinkedIn, find the latest post, or go to the profile and give you some information. And then it can come back and then post it in your Slack, or it could send you an email, or basically do some research on the person you're meeting with before you get there and do it on a regular basis. So that's like the very, very basic level of not even tons of reasoning or tons of all these other big, amazing things that you can do with agents. But just doing that little thing is probably helpful and instructive, so that whenever you look at your calendar, before you go to a meeting, you could just check and get the background information of people, what they're doing, what they're posting on social, and just get a sense of them before you walk into the meeting, right? And so summarizing and making a podcast, like you said, is just something is very similar in that type of role, right? So those are the types of things I think it's going to unlock so many different things that you're going to be able to have at your fingertips in all aspects of your work.
Yeah. So it might be a trade-off though between, I may not necessarily want to do a better job. I can see where I could do a really much better job as a pastor, because then, you meet these people all the time that all of a sudden they know things that they shouldn't know. And you're like, man, is this guy how does he do it? Those really sharp A players. But if I can see myself doing a better job with it, but how can I reduce some stress, create some downtime, create a 30-minute block between all the things on my meeting calendar or whatever? Or are there tools out there? Or how do I do that? How do I just chill my day as opposed to doing a better job?
Yeah. So we just had in a coaching session, this is an exercise we did. And this isn't even agentic AI. This is using AI, I think, in a very, very good way. Is that when you have difficult conversations coming up, whether it be someone on your staff, someone that's a volunteer, or someone that might be in counseling, pastoral care, counseling, even crisis situation, where it brings up a lot of anxiety on your side of like, I don't know how to address this. This is stressful, right? There's anxiousness of difficult conversations you're going to have. And most pastors, this happens on a regular basis. And so things get escalated to you, right? And it might be things where it's not in your comfort zone. You didn't really go deep in seminary on this, or you haven't had that much experience with this type of topic. So what do? AI is a great role-playing mechanism that you can actually soundboard and predict and actually have conversations that help you better be better equipped walking into those conversations. And typically, when you have those type of role-playing conversations, then your confidence goes up and your anxiety goes down. And I think that's one of those things that AI is going to have the ability to predictively give you more support and more rallying of more resources around you going into things so that you actually don't feel ill-equipped or you feel more confident going into it, right? You can see how that would help the anxiousness of especially difficult conversations.
Yeah. So if I'm a pastor and I've used Chat GPT and I kind of, I use it for researching my sermon or doing that sort of thing. How do I move from that mode to letting these tools out there? I think there's a lack of awareness that I could probably throw this, challenge I have with my associate pastor at Chat GPT. I mean, it's the last thing you think of. How do I move my day to day to get, to start employing some of these tools?
Yeah, I think it's a mindset. And I think it's one of those things where we say, when you think about AI, I would not think of it as like a word processor or a spreadsheet. It's not a traditional tool like that. It is someone on your team. So if you think of it as a very, very smart, well-read, well-intentioned, strategic intern that just joined your team this week or this month recently, that's the best way to talk about it, is because an intern is someone who's not an expert like you. If they just joined your team recently, they don't know all your pet peeves or your favorites or all your preferences. And so you want to educate and you have the conversation and it learns along the way. But it is really, really robust and gives you a co-worker, a co-creator, co-collaborator in your work. And I think that is the mindset shift where you're in the tools all day, every day. Now, this year, you're going to see more and more tools get integrated into the tools that you are using today. So Google just came out with a major update, and it's showing how you're going to be able to tap Gemini everywhere. Perplexity came out with also an update this year where you could hook up your Google Workspace and it can actually see all your Google Docs in your library. It could see your Gmail and actually work with that simultaneously. So it has understanding of your conversations. It has understanding of the work and the projects that you've created in Google Docs. So that integration is going to accelerate over the next several months, if not several years. AI development is just this war game that all the companies are, fighting each other to outdo each other. That's for the benefit of the consumer at the end of the day. But what you're seeing is this acceleration of innovation happening at a breakneck speed that we've never seen before.
So there are, I know the stats are coming out that more and more ministry leaders are beginning to accept AI.
Yeah.
Not quite as afraid of it as they were, but there's still a group out there that have a misconception. And what's the most significant misconception that you encounter when you're discussing AI with a ministry leader? And how do you address something like that?
Yeah, I think it's education. I think it's one of those things where I'm speaking at conferences all over the country these days, and one of the things I say almost every single time is framing the workshop, the talk is your job is not here to leave today and become an expert in any of the things that we're teaching or any of the tools that we're showcasing. Your number one job here today is to go back and become the facilitator of conversations around AI, because there's so many things that we need to talk about, whether it's AI ethics, AI policy, best case, best case scenarios of when you would use AI and when you would not use AI, best practices, right? You need to just convene and have the conversations, and you don't need to be the expert when you convene it. We know in terms of AI usage that it is so prevalent today that someone in your midst is 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of you, and you can take advantage of that. And so you don't need to have the pressure of, hey, I need to teach everybody how to use AI in any topic that you're talking about. You just need to be the host and facilitator. And so that's one of the things that I think is the number one way to combat what you're talking about. Because right now, I think we've seen a huge move forward, but basically at this point, over 90% of church staff and leaders are for the use of AI in ministry in some degree. And so that's a huge, huge shift. And that means everyone's ready to have the conversation.
So I know that, and I'm a little schizophrenic. And from one side, I just moved to I do software development stuff, and I moved to a recommended software tool that has integrated AI, and I've been just blown away on how much faster I go and how much, just so much more work can get done so quickly. That's been amazing. But then on the other side, I get these prompts from Google saying, "Hey, we want to read your email for you, and we want to help draft a reply." And I go, no, you're not. That's something I've been doing forever, and I think I'm pretty, I'm good at it. How do I get beyond? I mean, there's a level of trust there, or fear, or whatever. Talk me through how to make my day better, because part of my day, and like a lot of people's day, is answering and responding to email.
I would say, Steve, as a little bit of a pushback, you're one of the few people that like email, that you prefer to do more email, and that you want people to send you more email. I mean, this is a call to all the listeners out there right now to this conversation. Send Steve more email. He wants more email. I don't think that is the majority. I think what you want to do is you actually want to see what your intern. So this is, again, this intern metaphor, I think, is the best way to think about it. Would you hire an intern to actually go and do the response for your emails and have the intern send them without you looking at it? Absolutely not.
No.
Would it be useful for your intern to draft responses if the intern was looking at your inbox like an administrative assistant, like an executive assistant, and knew exactly what's going on, and know that over 50% of your emails are actually not things that require you personally to think about? It is, hey, when is the men's breakfast at church? Is it Saturday or is it next month? Where do you guys have childcare? Like, those types of questions are things that you probably could delegate. And so that's the first thing. Would you actually send stuff out that the intern wrote for you without looking at it? No. So why would you think that you would delegate an AI to do the same thing without looking at it? No. The other flip side, again, is, would it be useful for someone to draft some potential responses that gets to know your language, your pet peeves, your preferences? It knows that you either love sports metaphors or you hate sports metaphors, or right. It learns all of your preferences, and drafts those things. Wouldn't it be better to have an email that you're going to read and then some draft that gets you 50% of the way there, 70% of the way there, dare I say 90% of the way there, that gets your sentiment, gets your tone, and then allows you to actually get to the next email? I think those are the things that you have to start to allow to test on a trial basis. Can you work for 30 days? There are tools like there's an email platform that I'm starting to adopt. Again, it's called Superhuman, that is doing those things on a regular basis now, that is actually drafting the responses based on everything that it's seeing, that you've written before, that you received before, and then can it speed up your clearing of your inbox and getting down to inbox zero?
Yeah, I think the testing is an important part of that. I mean, I've been through, I had an exercise I did like a year and a half ago where I was having this, I'm a big car guy, had this issue with my car. And I thought, well, let's go ask ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I was kind of going, it wasn't, I was like, yeah, it's kind of in the ballpark, but it's not, I kind of wrote it off. But then I came back about 3 weeks ago, actually same kind of issue. And I was just amazed. And then the problem was I was not dialoguing with the ChatGPT the way I would an intern, because they would go back, oh, you need to check this. And I go, well, then I respond and go, no, I don't think it's that because of this. And then by the time I had this conversation with ChatGPT, it took a little bit, I said, oh, and I got this and I got this and I've done this add-on and this. And they're like, oh, well, I think your problem's right here. And I was like, wow, that sounds right on top. And I actually called the guy who had that expertise, and he goes, exactly right. He said, that's because we're gonna solve your problem, and you will. So anyway, I've gone through this. I tested early and I gave up, and I've come back recently. Has the AI improved?
Well, so the question is, has the AI improved or has your delegation improved? And most people, in my experience, overestimate how much information they're actually giving to the intern that just joined your team this week, right? And we are lousy delegators as a general rule with real life interns and AI interns, right? Like we are typically just thinking that this thing or this person will just solve our problems magically without equipping it for success. And so whether it's building a prompt, like I have a prompt framework called the Faster Prompt Framework, because if you want to get to a good result faster with an intern, you want to equip it and give it as much information up front as possible. Now, if you like having those interim meetings, right, with an intern, it's like you assign something, it brings the intern brings it back. You're like, no, you say, I like this, I don't like this, go back and try it again. And then you come back and the intern's back at your door every 10 minutes. Right? At some point, you want to remove all those interim meetings with your intern. You want to reduce the number of meetings you have with your intern. The way to do that is to actually equip it and delegate effectively, right? And so this is the type of thing that I think we need to figure out how to have a better relationship with our intern. And so here's just one super trick. At the end of your delegation, after giving a task or a question, what would be great for an intern is to say, hey, intern, are there any questions that you have now that would help you come back with a more confident response to satisfy what I'm looking for? A reverse interview. And that typically is a great step to be able to ask an offline intern, a real life human, or the AI chatbot to say, hey, I've given you the instructions. Is there anything else that would help you do your task even better? Giving that open-ended ability for that intern or the chatbot to ask you questions back is going to be a better result. So those are the types of things that we do in our coaching and our classes, et cetera.
All right, so let me jump in here. Starting to run out of time. And by the way, there's an online conference about this, which we'll promote here in just a moment. But you're talking about different platforms here, Kenny. You're throwing them out like pieces of candy. But if I'm a pastor listening to this thing going, all right, these guys are starting to convince me, maybe I should start doing this. Let me ask you the same question I asked Jason Moore a little while ago on our webinar. I'm a pastor of a church of 110 people. I've got one part-time staff person. What would be some maybe 3 AI platforms or tools that you would recommend I let my part-time staff person use?
Yeah. I mean, I think square one is ChatGPT. It is the behemoth right now. It's got the most momentum. And it's multi-purpose. Right now, you can actually create images with it. You can create videos with it. You can create text with it. There's a mobile app. If you want to get started, you can actually talk to ChatGPT. This is one of the things that we do in coaching. We basically force the people that we're coaching to start talking with ChatGPT. So you can do it with the mobile app, or you can even just call 1-800-ChatGPT on your phone, and you don't need an account, no credit card or anything, and just start talking with ChatGPT. It changes how you think about and how you relate to a chatbot. So that's a square one, ChatGPT. We created a course, ChatGPT for churches.com, because we think that is the square one thing that you need to actually get some basic competencies with. After that, I think there's so many different options. It really depends on what types of things that you're trying to actually produce with it. So the secondary thing that I would say is typically people start to think about how do you repurpose your sermon in the church, whether it be for small group leaders, whether it be for a podcast, whether it be for your website. So that's where you would look at a tool, say sermonshots.com is the one that I recommend. And so
there's another one out there too called Daily Dive 365 too.
Yes, that's another great one. So Daily Dive actually produces the podcast, right? And so this is the type of tool that I think you need to look at and say, on a practical basis, what is a tool that we would use on a regular rhythm? And so Daily Dive 365 is a great one that you actually will use it on a regular basis. It's not periodic. It's not like, oh, we're just going to use it for VBS. We're not just going to use it for, a men's breakfast or something like that. So that's the secondary type of tool that I would invest in to figure out something that you would get to use on a regular basis.
Okay, good deal. All right, so there's a workshop coming up, okay, and it's called Ministry Automation. I hope I get this right. Ministry Automation that feels like you, a practical workshop for AI agents.
Yeah.
And this is May 30th. It's 1:00 Eastern time. How do people sign up for this thing?
Yeah.
And what's it cost?
Yeah, we have a platform called AI for churchleaders.com. It's got a training library. It's got courses in it. One of the things we do is we do monthly live workshops. And you can find out the information about this one and future ones at AI for churchleaders.com/next. AI for churchleaders.com/next. And that is the place that we have very practical workshops where we teach you how to do specific things. So, for example, a future one that we're doing is how to create a discussion-based podcast that you could use on your sermons or any other topic. So one where you just feed content into it, and it will create a 2-person AI-generated podcast that you don't even need to record anything at the microphone. But this one coming up in May, we're going to talk about AI agents, and we're going to explain what it is and go through some very specific ministry use cases. So you can sign up at AI for churchleaders.com/next.
And if people miss that, because this is a few days from now and we're doing this podcast, I don't know if I'm going to get this out. I mean, will there be a recorded copy available?
Yeah, if you get the membership for AI for churchleaders.com, all of our monthly workshops are recorded. There's replays, there's playbooks that you can download, the PDFs that with instructions for each one of them, and so that's the place to get it. So AI for churchleaders.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You reminded me that my buddy, going back to my buddy that works for Walmart, our pastor's written a few books. And so he wrote a book, and this guy went off and did exactly what you're talking about. He fed the book into one of the AI tools, or maybe a couple of the AI tools, and he created a podcast that was an interview of the pastor, the author. And so it was a 20-minute kind of summary of what were the main points in the book, and it was based on a back and forth with an artificial interviewer. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, by the way, I see if I impressed Kenny on this. one of my wife's best friends is married to the head of AI for Microsoft. And we're going to go see them in Seattle, and then go visit them in Hawaii if I don't screw things up next year. My humor, sometimes it gets people. But I'm going to try to, if he's allowed to, I'm going to try to have him on our podcast. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft is back. We used to make fun of Bing at some point, right? And what's Bing? And Bing is back because of ChatGPT and Microsoft's involvement in OpenAI. I think they are now at the forefront at what AI is doing. And so, yeah, there's so many stories coming out of Microsoft today. All the big tech right now, like I said, it is kind of like war games, like an arms race that everyone is trying to outdo each other. So it's just an exciting time. And it's just one of those things that I feel called to help church leaders everywhere embrace what the future has for us in the future then. But really, the future is here now and today. And what do you need to do today? So the disruption is going to be large. We're going to see so many things that are affecting not just our church jobs and our workflows and our staff, but the people that we serve in our communities are going to be impacted by AI in tremendous creative ways, but also some negative impact ways too. And so I think as a church leader, as a pastor, we need to wrap our heads around it so that we can help the community, culture, and society that we are called to actually serve in our own ministries.
Yeah, that is so true. I didn't read your bio, but I pulled it up here. I'm doing things a little backwards today. But in case folks are watching or listening here, Kenny Jahng is actually an entrepreneur. He's a former pastor. Once you're a pastor, you're always a pastor, right, Kenny?
Yes, absolutely.
And he's a strategic advisor, of course, and he is a widely recognized expert when it comes to helping Christian ministries and nonprofits with communication, digital engagement, and technology, and the whole thing about AI. He's the founder and the CEO of Big Click Syndicate and a strategic communications agency. That is a strategic, easy for you to say, strategic communications agency dedicated to helping ministries create purposeful content and connect with their target audience. And as he mentioned here before, AI4churchleaders.com. Is that right?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. And so this is the guy you need to follow. If you're not following him on Facebook, Instagram, or signed up at AI4churchleaders.com, you need to do so. And because he is not only a good friend of ours, but he's got some really good input. And he comes from a pastoral perspective, which is what I like about you, Kenny. So appreciate that.
Well, it's always good to be with you guys. And I love the work that you're doing for the church.
Well, thank you so much. Stick around for a moment or so after we're done here. And folks, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us today on the Church Solutions podcast. And as always, you can always get our podcast. Just go to streamingchurch.tv/podcast, or just go to streamingchurch.tv and you can find out a bunch of our resources. Thank you so much for your time today, folks. Please take care of yourself and each other. And Steve and I will catch you again on another episode of the Church Solutions podcast.